coming in, and this is from Arunachal Pradesh, where the dragon has dead again as far as Tawang is concerned. A face-off took place between Indian and Chinese troops. Sources are now told PTI that at least 6 soldiers have been injured and have been brought to Guwahati for treatment. We're also learning that the situation is now under control and the injury to Chinese soldiers on the Chinese side is far more than that on the Indian side. We're now learning that China had come heavily prepared with around 300 soldiers but did not expect the Indian side to be well prepared. India giving a befitting reply as far as this transgression and this clash is concerned. Akash, my colleague, now joins me for more details on this. Yes, Akash.
So, Poonam, this happened on 9th of December, and as you rightly mentioned, they were well prepared and they come large in number. But, they got befitting reply from India, and we are learning that, we have got injuries on both the sides. In fact, we are learning that at least 6 of our soldiers have been admitted to Guwahati Hospital as of now. But, this is a big incident that is, coming to light after 2020, because we have seen Galwan where 19 of our soldiers made their lives. And after Galwan, this is one major incident where we have seen the physical clash. However, Indian Army is now saying that everything is peaceful as of now and peace and sanity has been restored in that particular area. But this is something that has been reported from Arunachal Pradesh, which is the eastern sector of the actual line of control. Last time in 2020, we have seen it in the eastern Ladakh. And we know about the friction point. In fact, several level of commander talks have happened since then to de-escalate these situations at various points. But as of now, we have more than 25 friction points alongside the actual line of control. And this has been reported out of Arunachal Pradesh. Not one of its kind, but yes, definitely after 2 years, it has been reported. And it's a physical clash between, armies of both the sides.
Right, and we're also given to understand what we're learning from sources to the PTI, Akash, now is that the injuries on the Chinese side are far more than that on the Indian side, even though we have details of at least 6 Indian soldiers that have now been airlifted to Guwahati for more treatment.
Exactly, and as I mentioned earlier, they were large in number, they were well prepared, and they had some sort of intention for this particular clash, but they were not sure as to, what kind of preparations they'll be getting on the other side, and that's the reason why, they have got more injuries. In fact, 6 is the only number. This is what we are learning as far as, Indian side is concerned. But as far as their injuries are concerned, so they got, befitting reply even when they were large in numbers. And that's the reason why, in fact, our sources are telling that they have got more people injured, even more soldiers are injured there.
Right, do stay on with me. Zaka Jacob also joins me for more perspective on this. And Zaka, as far as Arunachal is concerned, this is not the first time that we've seen conflict there. Transgressions have happened multiple times there in the past as well.
Oh yeah, the most famous one being Samudrong Chu back in 1986, and that went on for a number of months before that situation got resolved. I think the only sort of silver lining in this incident in Tawang is that no major weapons seem to have been used. It seems more like hand-to-hand clash, like what we saw in Galwan 2 years ago. In Galwan, you'll remember that a large number of these soldiers died because they fell into the icy waters of the Galwan River, so it was because of hypothermia. In the Tawang case, what we do know is that top military sources have told PTI, and PTI is reporting that at least 6 soldiers were brought to a hospital in Guwahati. They're said to be stable right now. But I think, like I said, if guns were not used, if heavy-duty weaponry was not used, and it seemed like hand-to-hand combat, one part is, yes, the injuries sustained have been minor, and therefore that is not that much of a concern. What is of a concern is that this frequent misperception that seems to be happening on where the line of actual control lies. Obviously, the Chinese side thinks it's way inside Indian territory, and vice versa. There have been instances where Indian troops have patrolled into what the Chinese perceive as their territory, and there have been standoffs in the past as well. So I think a couple of things. In the case of Tawang, why this is important is it's not just about a contested boundary. Tawang is also important for political reasons. The Chinese do know that one of the most holiest shrines in Tibetan Buddhism happens to be the monastery in Tawang. So it will have huge ramifications, particularly in a post-Dalai Lama scenario, which is why the Chinese for a number of years now has been claiming Tawang as southern Tibet. In fact, every time a senior Indian government functionary goes to Tawang, the Chinese foreign ministry always puts out a statement. They make a big brouhaha about it. Also, why this is significant is because the previous set of clashes that we saw in eastern Ladakh, that has not been fully resolved in the last couple of years. Yes, in certain friction points in PP15, PP17, Gogra Hot Springs, disengagement has happened. But in Depsang and in Demchok, that situation is still ongoing. We've had, I think, 15 or 16 rounds of Corps Commander talks. That situation has not been resolved. And you heard from the External Affairs Minister in Parliament just a few days ago saying that right now his assessment is that India and China are not in a normal bilateral relationship, and it cannot become a normal bilateral relationship until and unless this boundary question is resolved. And the decision by China to unilaterally change the status quo, as they did in April, May and June of 2020, we need to go back to the status quo ante situation as it existed pre-April 2020, and only then can we have a normal relationship. From whatever information we're picking up by way of both PTI and ANI news agencies who are reporting on the Tawang incident, basically there were about 300 Chinese troops who were trying to get area domination, who were trying to get height access. Remember, this is when the winter sets in, this is when the snow sets in. Unless you can get area domination now, once the snow sets in, you're basically locked in for the next 3 to 4 months. So what they were trying to do with this large number of troops, about 300 or 400 Chinese troops, was to try and get that area domination, try and get that height domination. That's where this clash happened between Indian and Chinese troops, in which the preliminary information that we have is that this happened on the 9th of December. It happened last week. It was on the banks of the Yangtze River, about 30 odd kilometers from the Yangtze River, and therefore in this whole fracas of area domination, there was hand-to-hand combat between Indian and Chinese troops, in which 6 Indian soldiers, at the very least, have been receiving treatment at the field hospital in Guwahati. And we're given to understand, again, by way of the same sources who have spoken to ANI, that a far higher number of Chinese soldiers have also been injured in this incident that happened in Tawang.
And that's also something that we had seen during the Galwan clash, Zaka, isn't it? That the number of injuries on the Chinese side was far higher as far as the 2020 Galwan clash was concerned. Militarily, there have been attempts that are being made by both sides as far as Eastern Ladakh is concerned, and disengagement, de-escalation is concerned there. But it looks like another front has been reopened by the Chinese side as far as Arunachal is concerned. And Zaka, the relationship between India and China diplomatically, of course, remains frosty. Like you said, S. Jaishankar also has been pointing out that this perhaps has been the lowest as far as relations are concerned between those two countries. And as far as Arunachal is concerned, along the border, we have seen military build-up. We've seen construction that has been happening there all along as well.
Oh, absolutely. Look, Arunachal, like I said, is not just, at least as far as the Chinese are concerned, it's not just a contested boundary, but it's important for the Chinese for political reasons as well. It is a seat of Tibetan spiritual Buddhism. In fact, one of the lamas who heads the Tawang monastery could potentially be nominated as a successor to the Dalai Lama. We don't know. That's a secretive process, but he could be one in contention. So the Chinese obviously understand the importance of Tawang. As far as India is concerned, Tawang has always been part of Indian territory. In fact, it was the last point up until which the Chinese troops came in the 1962 war. And there have been very, very decisive and deadly battles in 62 that were fought over Tawang. So the issue is right now that given the unresolved situation in Eastern Ladakh, given the unresolved situation, certainly we haven't seen disengagement in Demchok or in Depsang, are the Chinese opening another front in Tawang? Or was this, restricted to some localized factor? The local commanders on the ground, like I said, wanting some form of area domination by capturing the heights, because once the snow sets in, it becomes very difficult for mobility in these regions. So was it some localized factor that led to this clash? Or are they opening a new front in the hope that once the snow melts in the next few months or so, they would again try and change the status quo as they did with the Eastern Ladakh sector, or the Western sector as it's known? We don't know that. Also, you have to understand that the domestic situation in China has been rather precarious in the last few weeks. We've had all of